Have you been in situations where you've had to navigate difficult conversations or mediate dialogues in the classroom? And how do you do that?
Mm, well, I think when I teach, I always try to. The first thing I do is create ground rules, just like a basic understanding of respect and no right or wrong answers, um, but well informed and contributions to the class. And so I think setting the tone first and foremost has helped me, I think, create a space where, okay, like, look, we have these ground rules as a bar to revisit if shit gets crazy or if people break the rules. So it's like, it's not the rules that I make up. It's always also rules that the students will make and create, because after all, the classroom is like a community. Like, I've always used this question of how so. So if someone has something to say and it might trigger some folks around racism, around homophobia, around sexism, etc. Then then part of it is my piece to educate and to step in and intervene. But as an educator too is the mediation. And so if a situation arises where a difficult topic comes up, I try also to put it on the students and ask that question, because we are there after all to get these students to think more critically. And so by putting it on the student, then it challenges them to really think through their idea of where it came from, who informed that, what informed that position that they might have. And so it's a challenge for them to be like, okay, if you want to bring this issue up of all lives matter, for example, then what does that mean? Articulate that and expand on that a little bit. Um, and then once that person's done, allow the rest of the class to chime in. But I think you just approach those things with compassion and love for teaching, love for educating. And for me, the biggest thing is, like, I'm not here to change anybody. And I tell them, I was like, we shouldn't be in the business of changing people. It should be more so providing folks with empowered knowledge to make decisions on their own, because they have agency. It's on an individual to want to change. It's on an individual to want to begin to take a new path from the things that they once knew, put a depth to it, and then build from a new knowledge standpoint.
Why use sports as your platform?
It's the age, it's the moment that we're in, and sports is an industry, it's a business, and so there's exploitation that happens. There's a lot of money to be made. It's part of popular culture, but it's its own culture as well. It's entertainment, so there's a fun aspect to it, and I think it's leveraging a fun topic, of an entertaining topic, to hook people and engage people. And I think that because I'm so passionate about it, because I love boxing, it also gives me that extra fire to talk about it, but then also talk about cultural theories and to talk about power dynamics. Yeah, I think as an educator, it's important to be passionate about what you teach and the content that you're researching about. And so for me, I think that it facilitates making is a challenge to make a lecture engaging and fun. Um, and so when you're doing something that you love, it just facilitates the creativity, and it facilitates you coming up and thinking outside the box to talk about you know social justice issues through sport. And I think that's one of the reasons why I chose boxing, because I feel like I'm already an expert in the sport, and now it's just a matter of like incorporating um, the theories that I'm using to talk about this new knowledge that I'm creating.
Why is it that you say that you're an expert, and at what point did you feel comfortable using that term?
I've been watching boxing since I was 8 years old. I started playing soccer in '94, so I was 10. So 2 years prior to that, I was already watching boxing. So I've been watching boxing. I learned it. I began to love it. I think being approached by ESPN to talk about my thoughts on fights and my thoughts on upcoming matchups spoke to a level of authority and expertise. Writing about it, blogging about it, and I think it's like having something to say and feeling confident that you bring something to the table. Now, so I'm an expert in the sport. Like I know a lot of the history, know a lot of the boxers that came before this generation of boxers. But I don't claim to be a boxing historian at the same time.
There's a lot happening right now, not just in boxing, but in sports in general, of athletes kind of using their platform to talk about uh, social, even political issues in society right now. As somebody who studies sports and specifically studies boxing, but looks at sports from a historical context, how do you put what's happening right now in a historical context?
You know, society is not reflective in, or sports is not a reflection of society. It is society. Police brutality affects black men in sports because you're not wearing that uniform 24/7. And if you're a player like Bennett, who was with the Seattle Seahawks when he got um, brutally apprehended by cops in Las Vegas, his athletic background didn't prevent him from being harassed like that. Sports and sports participants in professional sports are being impacted by the dominant ideologies of race and power. And so the moment that we're in right now is in conversation with things like, you know, Emmett Till, in the sense that he he was doing something innocent. He was doing something that was playful, yet there was this understanding that you need to stay in your place and not disrespect white women in that way,
Which he actually didn't do that.
which actually he didn't do. But
No.
that was the main narrative that was accused of him, because a
Yeah.
woman then comes out and says that actually
Never
didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, and athletics right now in the moment that we're in, you could be, you know, a professional athlete of color and be celebrated, but you because we live in a colorblind society. Not we don't live in a colorblind society, but we have people who firmly believe that we do, because of the representation of black and brown athletes in high places, right? That comes with rules, So Colin Kaepernick is an example of one of those black athletes who didn't play by the rules. Therefore, he loses his job, and then people chalk it up to like, well, he doesn't put up the stats. He's not playing well. It was more of a performance thing. It wasn't nothing to do with his politics, and it has everything to do with his politics.
You talked about this a little bit, but what are the ways in which you've seen sports be used as a tool, both for advocacy and for organizing?
It has a long history of like sports and activism have a long history. Like, athletes have the power, the celebrity power, so they have a large platform, and so to mobilize a whole movement, they have the power. They choose to exercise that power to get the word out about any particular movement that's happening, whether it's gay rights or racial justice, something against police brutality. So the mobilization power that athletes have is to bring attention to the issue. In any movement, you need a spokesperson, and it's not necessarily that person is the most important person of the entire operation, but you do need a person to articulate the goals and the agendas of a particular movement or coalition. And I think athletes bring the mobilization power, which is the deferred action for parents of Americans, which DACA was for the students and for the kids and the youth, and DAPA would have been for the parents, which right now there's still a void. There's nothing there, but he does work around organizing and mobilizing people around that cause. Yeah, when you're a celebrity, when you're in the realm of popular culture and people know who you are, you have influence, and it's a matter of like gauging your sphere of influence and taking a risk, and being informed about that risk and being informed about the activist work that you're going to be doing.
How do you talk about that with students? Specifically, how do you talk to students around affecting change, I guess is a way to say it?
Start small. I always tell people that because I learned, Tim Weiss once told me, like, You know, when we go, it could be dangerous to like have this large goal and work towards it in the beginning and fail at it. It could be demoralizing, it could be exhausting, it could be the reason why you stop mobilizing and engaging in activism. So his thing was like start small and start in your neighborhood and change, impact change, and then build from that, and then elevate the level of your influence, the sphere of your influence.
People don't like Tim Wise. Well, some people don't like Tim Wise, but um, Tim is giving some great advice. I think some
Yeah.
of the best advice I've ever heard from him was that uh, good people can only do so much good in a bad system, and bad people can do only so much harm in a good system.
Hmm.
As somebody who's a systems thinker, that is some of the most sound advice I think I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, I like Tim Weiss. I like his work. I think he's a good white ally. He speaks to white people and challenges the crap out of them. So I don't have an we need folks like that. And as like a person in your role, which I used to do back in the day, if you have a community that needs a community of white folks who need to hear it from a white person, then he's a very effective tool.